Test. Good evening. I'll call the meeting of September 26th to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Seal, would you lead us in the pledge? Allegiance. United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation. Thank you. Test. Lower that. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll of the council?
Councilman Fogarty?
Yeah.
Councilman Lawson?
Here.
Council Vice President Rego? Councilwoman Sousa? Council President Roberts?
Here. The records show that the council is all here. You'll give me a second, Madam Clerk. We have no executive session. And as a personal privilege, I would like to move the mayor's portion of the budget review up at this time to allow the mayor to attend to a family function, something we've all identified with. And if there's no objection, we will prepare to move to that point now in the budget. Mayor, if you want to give us a second, we'll call that up. Patricia, do you have that section of the budget? Okay. Page 17 in the budget book. Just get there. Okay, so at this time, before any of us ask any questions, Mayor, if you want to proceed and make any statements.
Thank you, Council President, members of the council. So we're introducing a budget that sets the mayor's budget at $496,000.47. The budget, since we took office, since 2020, the mayor's office budget has gone up approximately 6% over those 4 years. Actually, yes, 4 years. So in 2020, we were at $463,290. In 21, $464,761. In 2022, we were at $464,491. We actually went down. And in 2023, we were at $471,234. The increase this year from $471,496 is mostly due to some of the challenges facing all of our departments, which are increases due to inflation. Gas and oil lubricants have gone up, office expenses have gone up, and we have two employees who are entering their 5th year of service. Actually, they'll be completing the 5th year of service, and they will be entitled to longevity. We are also proposing giving the staff a 2% increase in their salaries.
Thank you, Mayor, for the overview. Questions from the council?
I just have one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
The two positions that are the longevity, entering into longevity there, union employees.
Did not. But department heads throughout the city, they enjoy the same longevity benefits as do union employees. Although they're not department heads employees, I didn't feel it was proper to treat them any less than a union employee. The work that they put in far supersedes a 40-hour work week with the hours that I put a demand on them. They're often working on weekends. They're working after hours. So the two employees in question have been with me the longest would be Patricia Rezendi and Marlene Davis. So those two employees have been here now going on. It's going to be completing 5 years. As you all know, the mayor's salary does not increase. So the last 4 years, my salary has been the same. This year, it's the same, and it will continue to be the same for the next number of years. So there's no increase in the mayor's salary, and I'm sure you all knew that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mayor, the mayor's salary, is that set by the charter?
Mayor's salary, yes, it's actually set by the council, but
It's by-
the charter says
By ordinance.
the charter says that it can be changed by the council if it's done before the filing date for reelection. So if I had come to the previous council before the filing date in June and said, hey, guys, would you guys consider this? The council could have changed it. Okay.
It's not one of the bigger sections of the budget. This is not for a vote tonight. This is like any of the other budget reviews that we've been doing. It's just that, a review, and we will have a formal vote when we do the actual budget vote. Any other questions, this section right now? Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, we'll just revert back to, I guess we'll start with the consent calendar if you want to mention that.
We currently have nothing under consent calendar or licenses, so we would go to public comment.
Yes, do you want to call off the list?
The first person we have signed up is Lois Gomes, speaking on the rec center.
Yes,
Come up to the
just-
podium here on the left.
Just give your name and address for the record, please.
Lois Gomes, Lois Gomes, 66 4th Street, East Providence, 02914.
Thanks. You can proceed.
Excuse me. My name is Lois Gomes, and I'm a resident of East Providence, also a graduate of East Providence High, and also I'm speaking on behalf of the recreation center that we're hoping to get built here, either in East Providence. I don't know which location you're going to choose to build it, or at this current time, it's going to be at the near the senior center's facility. I'm all for it because I'm actually a product of Parks and Recreation. My first job here for the city was working in the recreation department at Bright Ridge as a special needs counselor. And once I graduated from college, I actually got a degree in recreation and leisure studies. So I basically have over 40 years of experience in the field of recreation, and that this is a very important need for not just the kids of East Providence, but for this entire community. The recreation center should be built and be able to provide programs for anywhere from tiny tots to senior citizens. If the issue is that there's a problem that the seniors are not comfortable with having a recreation center located on the senior center's property, there's a solution. Basically, you can have the seniors collaborate with the recreation center and offer programs and such like that for seniors to teach the youth. Basically, we've been waiting for years to get a recreation center in East Providence. We had one at Riverside. It is no longer a recreation center. It's a medical center as well as a food bank. Providence has 9 recreation centers. Pawtucket has 3. East Providence has none. We need this. Our youth need it. Our community needs it. Seniors everywhere. We just need this facility built. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Candy Seal, speaking on the multipurpose center.
Thank you, Cecile. You can proceed.
Thank you, Council President Rodrick. I will speak as quickly as I can. I'll have to ask your indulgence for an extra minute if necessary.
Take your time.
Thank you. Candy Seal, 1340 South Broadway, East Providence, 02914. Good evening, and thank you for your time. Keep Metacomet Green has been at this podium many times over the past 3 years, most recently regarding the Parkway nomination to the National Registry and an archaeological survey of Metacomet. We will return to those matters again, but we turn today to our core mission, preserving the green and open space of Metacomet. Since August 2020, KMG has advocated for the city to purchase Metacomet for use as a municipal park, recreation center, and public golf course. Our commitment to this goal has not wavered to this day. This summer, Mayor De Silva announced his dream to build a grand community center behind the Senior Center for $45 million. This was envisioned as a transformational project on a par with the construction of Pierce Stadium many years ago. The mayor's initial plan was not received well by either the public or the council. Last week, Peregrine Group presented 2 new designs, stripped down from the original. The first envisioned a smaller facility with a scaled-back pool and gym and several multi-purpose rooms at a cost of nearly $21 million. The second, even more stripped down, eliminated the pool and pared the gym back to a half court at a cost of $8.3 million. Neither of these concepts is transformational. Neither of them compares in any way to the scope and grandeur of Pierce Stadium, nor to what voters were anticipating when they voted twice to finance a recreation center. The council has turned its focus to constructing this multi-purpose community center at Pierce Field. Council members have acknowledged that the senior center location would make the traffic situation even worse on 2 of the most heavily traveled roadways in the city. And as Council President Rodrick observed, the senior center has its own gym equipment, and students attending the high school will have little interest in nor time for frequenting the education component after school, and they have their own basketball court. The Pierce Field location at Mercer Street and Lyon Avenue would have similar traffic and safety concerns in a residential neighborhood with an elementary school just down the street. Should Metacomet be developed, traffic congestion and the threat to public safety will be even worse. Right across the street is an ideal location, Metacomet. It provides a natural bridge between the Pierce Field complex and the new 9-hole golf course by the Cove. Sewer and utility lines are already in place. There's even a parking lot there. The suggestion has been made that the purchase of Metacomet is off the table, that a final determination has been made. I don't recall a vote by this council on purchasing Metacomet. The previous council voted not to pursue eminent domain at this time. There is no final determination. What with sky-high interest rates on commercial borrowing and continuing supply chain difficulties, the developer may now be willing to consider a friendly purchase. Why not ask? KMG presented a detailed fiscal analysis to the council in March. We showed that a friendly purchase could feasibly happen for $12 million, with eminent domain around $18 million. Our data indicated that a modular community/recreation center could be built for $3 million. We also found that leasing the 9-hole golf course would provide revenue for maintenance of the park and the center. This council refused to conduct its own fiscal analysis. Councilman Lawson floated the possibility of finding $13 to $14 million for the mayor's All Things to All People Center. Use that to purchase Metacomet. Use the $3 million in federal funds to build a recreation center there. Unlink the $3.8 million in state funds that are contingent on education and health benefit initiatives. Use those funds to renovate the former Oldham School or the Oddfellows Hall at Wachamoket Square. Each of these sites offers its own advantages. Each is on a bus line. Don't rush through a half-baked plan in an inappropriate site. That's not what anyone wants. It's not transformational. Slow it down, give it more thought. Seek out real public input, not merely a hasty Facebook poll. 5, 10, 20 years from now, no one is going to look back and think how wonderful it was that this council and this administration built a scaled-down shell of a building with a hodgepodge of uses. They would look back, however, and say how wonderful it was that this council and this administration had the foresight and wisdom to buy Metacomet and preserve it as a green and open space that generations of townies will enjoy for years to come. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Nominees, John, the docket item, public hearing.
Made it.
Just
Last
give
time I
your
spoke,
Name and address.
Anamoni's John, 149 Anthony Street, East Providence. As I was going to say, it's been a long time since I've done this. The last time I came here, the podium was over there, and there were no cameras. But I felt that this was very important to come out to speak on. I totally support the community center, multi-purpose center, and I'm sure a lot of you support it as well. I've been working with youth my entire life, and they will support this. They will go to the center. I also think the senior area is ideal because it is right there. It's right by the high school. I know everybody's saying, oh, there's going to be a lot of traffic. But every time something is built, all the naysayers, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. When they wanted to build low-income housing, it's not going to work. Those scattered units were the best thing the city ever did after years of people being scared and running off. Every time we're going to build something, there's a fear factor. But we don't have to be fear because we've already done this. When I grew up, and some of you people up there, we had what they called back in that time a drop-in center. And the drop-in center was right on Waterman Avenue. And again, everyone was yelling, saying, this is not going to work. It can't work. Not on the highway. It's going to cause traffic. There'll be jams. There'll be kids all over the place. It was put on Waterman Avenue, and it worked very well. I think there would be less traffic because if you think about it, you've had people come in here for years complaining about all the kids leaving the high school and going over to Shores, hanging in the parking lot, causing problems at the market. So instead of going across and hanging in Shores, they could go across and hang at the community center or whatever it's called. We had a community center. It worked well, and everybody walked. I know it was a different day and a different time, but a lot of the kids still walk. As you can see, if anything, more than a traffic jam, there's a walking jam. This way they could walk across. And I really like what Lois said earlier. If we put more planning into it, we can merge the activities. And it would be great for seniors and youth to work together. And that's the way things are going. There's, I don't think there should be any worry about the traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but all I can speak to is what I know. And I know we had a drop-in center and it worked well. Everybody walked from school over to Waterman Avenue. Sometimes we came by the back way over to Payette Street. And it's not just a gym. They had activities. They had tutors there for after-school programs. They even had sewing machines. Back in the day, you had to take sewing if you were a woman. So they had sewing machines there, and you got help with your sewing problems. They had drummers there. Kids came and just banged on drums, and we were all teenagers. So you can make activities. We had adults involved. Adults were coming to learn to sew. It can work if we want it to work. And I think we should take a good look at it because instead of these kids running over, causing havoc in the Shores parking lot, across the street, they would go over to the center. I think it could work. Thanks for listening. And think about it. Those of you who can remember when East Providence did have something. Because right now, when winter's coming, as we all know, it's already dark by 6:30. Where do our kids go? They have nowhere to go. The playgrounds are closed. They might cause more traffic in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. You've dated yourself and myself. I remember that drop-in center. I was a little young. I remember it. Thank you, Anna. Next.
Joseph Tavares, speaking on the rec center.
You don't need to be sworn in. You can just speak. Okay.
Just give your name and address for the record, Joe.
Joseph Tavares, 135 Apulia Street,
East Providence, Rhode Island. Actually, I'm here because I'm a wannabe Townie. My wife won't let me be a full-fledged Townie because I was born in Fox Point, even though I've been here 55 years. That doesn't count. But the reason I wanted to speak was that I remember when I was living in Fox Point, we had a boys club on South Main Street that had a pool, a gym. We had at the Augustian Elementary School now, they built a new gymnasium. And so we basically had a community center. That boys club became the focal point of Fox Point. And a lot of friends and family, we'd go there, we'd have movies, we'd have, the dances, we had basketball. And, it was so important to the community. Fox Point was a very diverse community. Basically, there was a lot of Portuguese and Cape Verdeans. We all got along well, and it was a fun place to be. And I'd hate to see that East Providence would not build one of these or build a community center for the sake of, because of the money. I'm quite sure if you work it out, we could work out the money. But it really is a good thing to have in your city. Because I know of the friendship, a lot of the people I met down there during that time now live in East Providence. And I know they would say the same thing. It's needed. It's needed. With all the anguish that's going on in the world these days, a place to get together with friends and discuss things is definitely needed. I hope you guys show enough courage to come up with a plan that make it grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And Fox Pointers, including my wife who grew up there, smartened up and moved to East Providence many years ago. 55, you say? Next.
Adrian Delgado speaking on the public hearing.
Hi, my name is Adrian Delgado. I live at 182 Grosvenor Avenue, East Providence. Basically, I don't have much to say. That boys club that the gentleman was just talking about, I grew up across the street from it. You couldn't ask for a better place to be. One thing that you had is you met kids from all over the place. When you went to another side of town, you had less trouble because you played basketball. You were on a swimming team. You knew everybody. Wansket, Onlyville, Southside Boys Clubs. We all went to Camp Davis together. It was a good place. Whatever you do, I'm just glad you're going to build it somewhere. I think location is good because all the buses that come up by the senior center, I drove for Ripter. I just retired. You have the 33 bus, the 34 bus. You have a couple other buses that go into Wampanoag Plaza. It's easily accessible. Either way, just build it wherever you build it, but that would be my idea of a very good place to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
James Michaud speaking on the community center.
My name's James Michaud, and 53 Cedar Avenue, Riverside. And currently, I'm not in favor of this. I could be changed. But I really think we need to do a full assessment of the buildings that we already have, the libraries, the Fuller Center, and if there's other public spaces, to make sure they're being used fully. I do use the Riverside Library, and there's a room there, and I don't think it gets much use. The Fuller is, I think, open 3 days. We should make sure we're using what we have. And then as far as recreational center, gyms and such, I counted 7 gyms and small fitness studios in East Providence. And there's 2 swimming pools. I know there's Health Tech and then one other smaller one, I believe. How is this going to affect these people? I mean, they've worked hard, I'm sure, to put these gyms out. I'm sure you encourage private businesses. So, this could affect them, potentially put some of them out. I also think a more neighborhood type of things, like gyms all scattered out, are going to get more use. Allow someone else more business opportunities too, if they so choose. And, you know, and it's, I think it's pretty good that way. And that's pretty much it, you know. I think I could be swayed to change my mind if, you know, like this study was more, if you said we are using everything, or geez, we're not using this building at all, we've just been maintaining it for years. Let's get rid of it and use that money for that side. But that's my feeling on it. Well, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Richard Delfamini speaking on the community center.
Thank you very much. And as you said, I'm Richard Delfemini, and some of you know me. And I've been pretty outspoken lately about the condition of our city. And I'm not here to speak against this recreation center. I just can't understand how we could even fathom a plan when we can't take care of what we have. Case in point, you're looking around, when we finally fix ceiling tiles, but why is this wood all carved? You look at the outside of the building, there's nothing that's maintained on the outside of the building. And this goes with every building we have. And I'll prove it. But I'm telling you to consider what's going on here. Our buildings are decaying, our roads and our infrastructure, and we don't have money. We don't have money to hire staff to keep these things up. But you want to keep building $200,000 splash parks and things to embellish what you're doing to this for the city, like you're doing a good thing. You're not. You're doing a disservice to these people. Look at our taxes are going up. It seems to me, and I respectfully, it just looks like the head guy's driving the bus and you guys all go along with him. And I know in the last meeting, some of you guys stood up on your own 2 feet. And respectfully, I don't mean guys, but people. You just get worked up, you know? But independence, that's why all of you represent your own wards. And Bobby, you're at large. Look at all of us and look at the condition, all right? Not just the things that are shiny and nice. You've got to maintain what we have. And please tell me if I'm wrong, because I've been looking at this for a while, and the city has never built anything that hasn't been a problem. Martin Junior High, just for one. How long has that been a problem? Since day one. It looks like we're going on that same road with the high school now. And we want to build this new beautiful facility. Well, do we want a recreation center, or do we want classes and pools? And are we going to rent this out? And is it going to sustain itself financially? We're going to have to hire a lot of new staff and everything. It's wonderful to have these new things. Yeah, we want all these nice shiny things. But the things we have sitting in the backyard, we want to work and we want to function and we want them usable. I've been around this city my whole life, and I've been around construction and facilities and management for 50 plus years. I know what I'm talking about. So I want you to consider that. I'm not saying don't build this thing as much as I think it's a fiscal mistake. Forget the COVID funds. The COVID funds should be used on things that were affected by COVID. That's what it's all about, right? And we're going off in left field, right field with these ideas. Oh, let's use this money. Oh, they'll give us half of it. Well, then we've got to pay the other half. That's why our taxes are going up. Just in closing, to continue to do something the same way, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. So please think about it, people, and I come to you respectfully. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Next.
That completes public comment.
Okay, that
Yeah.
completes, did you have someone specific? There was one request from someone who came in and missed the sheet. Oh, they were called up, so, okay, good. So everyone was accommodated. I didn't want to question the clerk, no. Thank you all who commented. It's good to see people come out to meetings instead of sitting watching us in front of a little screen at home. Some people say it's like watching grass grow, but it's not too bad. Next item, please. And sincerely, thank you all who came out to speak. Next, please.
Appointment to the City Council Crescent Park Committee, Marcia Tellini, sponsored by Councilman Lawson.
So Marcia will be the school department ex officio member of the Crescent Park Committee. And I reached out to Dr. Ferrand and I said, we'd like to have somebody on that we can coordinate. One thing I'd love to work better on is communication between every moving part in this city. There was times where like things would be happening with the schools that we weren't aware of. So Marcia gracefully came aboard. And so I'd like to move that we appoint her to the Crescent Park Advisory Committee.
Motion by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. Going to lower this. Is that better? Okay. Next item.
Moving on to council members' discussion on city council boards and commissions. Discussion only, sponsored by Council President Roderick.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think this was a leftover item. We had been talking about some resolutions and policies on putting together the length of boards and commissions. So there's nothing really formal that I want to add tonight. So
I would like to say that these boards and commissions, historically, they're created for great intents, and then we just let them wither on the vine. So if we're creating a board and commission, one of us has to be there and help guide. For instance, the Veterans Committee, Frank and I, at Crescent Park, I show up. If we're going to do, well, we got a business, seniors, and recreation.
recreation, seniors.
We have to be there. We can't just create it and walk away. So, and I also think we should probably look at the numbers. Do we need 20 members of, say, the senior advisory board and, you know, the Crescent Park one, because those folks volunteer to put on the event. So 20 is a robust number because you can't have everybody doing the same thing. So we should have that conversation. So I believe Joe sent us copies of the enabling legislation of the various ones. Maybe after the budget process, we can revisit and, you know, the senior, the recreation, and is there another one? Small business, yes. And I do have somebody interested, but I told him as soon as we get more clarity. But if you're ready to start appointing, or do you want to wait till we decide the makeup of how it's going to look? Okay. Okay. So that was what I just wanted to add, because we can't just create them and walk away.
Right, correct. And we've had that conversation. I've asked the assistant solicitor, Dylan Conley, is working on language. For instance, as an example, you mentioned the City Recreation Board, which has been dormant for more than a decade or so. So we're trying to bring that back, but we don't need 20 people on it. We need representatives from all the groups in the city, some at-large community members, and a couple of us. So that's where we're going, and we'll start to formalize it soon. Thank you. Next item.
Learn 365 program explanation and report of the City of East Providence's fiscal obligation in relation to Learn 365. Discussion only, Councilman Lawson.
Councilman.
I forwarded the info I received from the city. So my concern was, you know, we've been sitting and listening to all these state mandates of, you know, the school department and, you know, all this money that we're obligated to pay that's mandated. My concern was this was just another mandate that's only funded for a year. I was told that there's no match involved, so we're not financially responsible. The intent is good. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out, but my concern was mainly, is it an unfunded mandate that we're going to have to, after 1 year, start picking up? So I just wanted to put that out there. So for this year, we're not financially obligated, but subsequent years, it's something, I just want to caution people. I'm not looking to fund this program if it's not funded next year. So.
Yep, can't disagree with that. Any other council members comment on that? I think the unfunded mandates especially hurt the school system. There are, which council budget has to cover. We're all one city, but when they mandate educational programs and have no funding that goes with it, and we have some individual programs for a student who moves into the city. And this has been going on for 40 years. It's nothing new, but anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 for one program. So the mandate's fine. In many cases, it's needed, but the mandates don't come with dollars. So I hear you, Councilman. Thank you for bringing that up publicly.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman Rigo.
I agree with what Councilman Lawson was just saying now about mandates. And if they're not going to be funded for a long period of time and they're just 1 year, we're doing the citizens of the city a disservice. But on top of that, in a scenario like this, we're doing a child a disservice. We're going to start a process. We're going to start a program for that child, and then all of a sudden we're going to say next year, "No, we don't have the money," or we got to take it away. You got to take it away from something. So if it's not going to be a long-term investment by the state of Rhode Island, we cannot afford to do it, because ultimately who we're hurting is that child.
Well said. Anybody else? Madam Clerk, next item.
Build ARPA allocation spending and existing purchase orders from inception to date, broken down by program and line item. Discussion only. Council Vice President Rigo.
Councilman.
Mr. President, at this time, I've gone over this report with Malcolm a little bit, so I'm going to defer over to him so he can, he has a detailed report and, all right. Okay, there we go. So I'll turn it over to Malcolm at this time to give us a detailed summary of, I would say, Malcolm, if you can give us the top 15 expenditures would be a starting point, because I don't think you have it printed out for the entire council to have at this time. But is this also something that can be found on the city website listing all the items? I think in the true sense of transparency that we need to have these items listed.
What I've put together, I did today. I found out today this was due, so I need to sit down with the mayor and his staff to go over that first. And then we could probably get it on the website. That would be up to, obviously, the mayor and his department. But to give you an overview, we received $27.8 million in total. To date, we've spent just under $10 million. There are currently 5.5 million of open POs. So that would be 15.5 of the 27.8, leaving 12.4 to $12.5 million available. Currently, the council has approved 9.7 million of projects in the last few weeks. That does not include the 2.5 that's on the agenda today. If that gets approved, then there is currently 200,000 available at this point in time. Now, one thing we have not done is looked at the open POs to see if they were put in and not used, or if there's residual amounts that we can close, which may free up some more money, but I don't think it would be a lot of money at this point in time. When we looked at the expenses, the biggest One was the seawall repair at Rose Larissa Park, and that's about 2.7 million. We bought a fire truck for 1.9. It drops down pretty substantially before that. The top 10 items make up about 85%. Runnings River tributary was almost 600,000. Again, I want to sit down and go over. I go over on a quarterly basis with the mayor. We go over this. We have to file with the state. We go online or sorry, with the federal government. And this last quarter, I have not gone over with the mayor. I don't want to misspeak before I talk to him. But I gave you the overview of where we stand at this point in time. And I can tell you on the purchase orders of the 4 million or of the 5.4 approximately, over 4 million is for the lining of the wastewater, the infrastructure that was approved recently. But the rest of those, I want to go over with the mayor just to make sure he's on board with it and make sure they haven't been closed. He did notice some discrepancies I have to look into.
Discrepancies in regards to expenses that have already been, programs that have already been expensed?
Well, for example, when we looked at it, we had put some, there were some expenses in there for the police body cams. And it wasn't a lot of money, but he goes, those don't belong there. So I researched them. I go, yes, they were for body cams. We have to move those out. So those go against either the police department's budget or against the Google money.
I think weren't the body cams either Google money or grant funded or wasn't part of the ARPA or regular budget?
It wasn't part of the ARPA. The police had got those, and I don't know if it was through a grant. I know they put it here, but maybe it belonged under the DOJ. We've got a separate fund set up for that, for the Google money.
Why couldn't opera be used for these body cams?
They could be, but I think that
I think there was other funding that covered it.
Do we have that funded?
The Google, yes.
No, not asset forfeiture. I'm saying,
Council President, it was a state grant. It's part of the state grant program.
Right.
This is a statewide program that the state made monies available to every city and town to fund the purchase of body cameras. That's where that money came from, and that's where the city used it from. And I believe the
knew there
council
was
approved
other
the
funding
resolution.
that covered it.
did we appropriate money for body cams for opera?
Yes.
No.
No, not opera, no.
Okay, so I'm confused why body cams and opera is even in the same sentence then.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It's the state grants.
So in theory now, there's another million. You said the body cameras were 1 million?
No,
not 1 million.
It was a small amount.
Small amount. So that money, that means there's more money in opera.
A little bit, 10,000, 15,000. It wasn't much, but he just noticed it. So I want to sit down with him and make sure that, as people are putting these in, they're like, ooh, I need a 5-digit fund number. And sometimes ARPA just sticks in their mind that they just went in the wrong account, that's all. So we just want to make sure that what we're telling you is accurate.
I don't know if we have to make a motion to do this, but I think in the sense of transparency, and since we're dealing with federal money, dealing with COVID, that I would hope that we don't have to make a motion, but that these items are listed on the website showing what the expenditures were. That would be true transparency.
Okay.
Not on the website. So, I mean, if I have to put it on the docket for the next meeting, I will. I mean, it's
Malcolm said that he will.
well, it's federal money. I mean, I don't know why anybody is going to object to it, but it's got to go. Thank you.
You have other,
Is that doable, Patricia, to put that stuff on the website?
So Councilman, obviously we put out anything where we've always
Okay.
been about transparency on the website, and we're happy to do that. I just happened to pull up the Council President, if I may. So we did put out a press release in November in regards to body cam and in-car video proposals. We did load the RFP. There was a website advertisement for it, so it's all been there. All the information.
No, I was just wondering why opera funds were connected, that
Right,
he
I-
said there was a discrepancy.
I think
Well, it's just a
Malcolm
mistake.
answered that it was just someone assigned it to the wrong.
Just reuse the wrong 5-digit code number for funds.
Okay. Do we have to double check that we didn't make that mistake elsewhere?
That's what we're looking into.
Okay. You good, Councilman? Pretty much got the conversation going on that. So I think, Malcolm, for maybe the next meeting, you would have had time to go through the whole list. But it seems like, I mean, most of the opera funding has been either spent or earmarked already.
Correct.
So we clean up a couple of things here and there, but we're not talking that all of a sudden we're going to see $5 or $6 million that have not been earmarked for anything.
Correct.
Okay.
So anything over $50,000, we should have a record because it should have came in front of this body or the body that served before this body.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the councilman's item? Thank you, Councilman. Next.
Discussion on ARPA projects proposed by the city council. Discussion, sponsor Councilman Lawson.
I would request to table this. After last week, I thought we could discuss moving some money towards the rec center, but until I can hear from the mayor, he's willing to compromise on the design and location, I'd like to table this.
Sure, it's a good suggestion. I think as a couple people have said tonight, let's slow down a bit and get a full picture of where we're going. Next item.
Council discussion and subsequent vote on supporting a community/recreation center for the city of East Providence. Total cost, location, programs, i.e. gymnasium, pool, classrooms, fitness room, office space, and other options. Discuss and possible vote. Council President Rodrick.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, I asked to, as we all asked, let's get this funneled into hopefully soon a final decision. I don't think we have enough information tonight to say, unless someone here differs with me, but a finite plan. We're meeting again next week. We have some time, but let's have an open discussion. We do have, I believe Dominic is here. Leonardo is Dominic Leonardo is here to discuss briefly the city's proposal and to answer any of our questions. I don't know if you want to hear from Mr. Leonardo first, and then we can react to that, or do anyone here want to make an opening statement?
I would like to get a sense of what we're trying to do tonight. If we're not looking to make a decision or anything, shouldn't we table this as well?
Well, correct. Does anyone here feel like we are prepared tonight to?
No, I mean, I let the mayor know I don't support his workforce thing.
Right.
And I'm willing to compromise on other things, but at this point, we're in the middle of the budget. Maybe this is a big item to just kind of like in the middle of a budget.
This originally was supposed to be after the budget process. Again, I'm one who supports a recreation center.
As do we all.
We all
As
support a
do we all.
recreation center.
Yeah.
But everything, all the other intangibles that have been thrown onto it, those, I think that's where we have a lot of questions. And we originally said after the budget process, when we started back in August, and we're here now on the 26th of September, and we're in the middle of the budget process. We're not doing the citizens of the city proper service if we're going to do it now. And there's been so many more questions that have risen since last week. I agree with my fellow councilman from Ward 4 that we should table this motion as well.
Sure, and if you know, if you remember, beginning of this whole process, I had hoped to get the budget done first. That was our goal. And it got conflated with the community center and other issues. And so we need to finish the budget process. But I do want to at least ask Mr. Leonardo, or at least ask you this generally, timetable-wise, whatever we build, wherever we build it, if we build it, what is the city's timetable in terms of, things have to go out to bid, RFPs, if we're changing the plan. We know the initial plan is not going to happen, the $45 million. The second plan has been watered down also. So now we keep, which is why you guys are there. You have to react to our changes and things. So where do you stand right now, and where do we go timetable wise, architects, engineers, plans?
Yeah. So for the state's $3.8 million grant,
Right.
that project has to be completed by 2026. So that's why the architects that's why they were before you last council meeting to ask for more concrete as far as the cost, basically what's on the agenda tonight. So that way we can move forward with whatever is decided to be built. So that's a pressing deadline to get the entire project completed by 2024, October of 2024, or else all those funds have to be returned back to the state, that $3.8 million. 2026, I'm sorry.
So that's completed, not
Completed and operational.
okay. And briefly, if you know, what restrictions come with that money? In terms of,
I wouldn't call them restrictions. I think everything that people want in a community center or expect in a community center can be built. And that state funding doesn't stop us from building a court, weight room, whatever people expect out of a community center. What it does is say, you have to provide health, education, and workforce programming. Those are things that we already do provide as a city. So by telling the state, saying, hey, we understand that you're giving out community center, they're willing to fund community centers through grants. And they're saying, if we give you these dollars, you have to have health, education, and workforce development training. So when people are giving out grants, they don't just say, hey, we're going to build you a basketball court. Here's a weight room. Here's millions of dollars. They want something from it in the form of health, education, and workforce. Again, these are things we are providing, so we can provide them and expand those services at the community center.
so
So I wouldn't call it a restriction, Council President. I would say we just have to provide those services if we want that $3.8 million.
well, to repeat what you said, make sure I'm clear on it. We already are providing those services. Can we put those services currently provided in a facility that we build somewhere?
Correct, except, yes, on our application, I guess the way we've been requesting from the state is at 610 Waterman Avenue behind the senior center.
Correct, and that was one reason to get this on tonight. So is that a stringent requirement of the 3.8 million that it has to be at Waterman Avenue? And if it is, can it be amended?
It's where we've asked them in our application. It's where we've asked the federal government and received funding. So it's where we have $6.8 million allocated to in all our grant applications dating back to 2022. If I may, Council President, I understand there might not be an appetite for a vote, but I just wanted to provide a quick timeline to bring everybody
Please.
up to speed on this whole process of a community center. If I could just pass this out.
Sure.
This is what I just wanted to provide. And hopefully this answers question.
We could, in theory, amend our RFP to change the scope of what we were using initially. We initially had planned to do something else.
I guess I'm most concerned about going back to the federal government and saying, hey, you awarded us $3 million a couple of years ago for a particular project. Now we have to go back to HUD and say, hey, we're switching our project 2 years later. And then the state, hey, I know you awarded us 3.8, but we're switching our project.
This is why we wish you guys involved us more in the beginning of all this. And now
Yeah.
I mean-
We didn't find, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We didn't find out about Waterman Avenue. The cat didn't get out of the bag until like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
When the
well,
architect.
with all due-
A little
but I-
bit. I mean,
Go do one at a time, please. Councilman Rigo, you have the floor.
in the beginning, but we didn't know it had to be there. It was never the option. You know, we heard Waterman Avenue, and there's no flexibility.
Well, the first plan, though, did say Waterman
Yeah,
Avenue,
but
45 million.
but with the
We knew it back then.
but with some hopefully with some flexibility. And it was time when that first that was in March or April, we were presented with that. We should have been working it, maybe talking with the federal government at that point, that maybe we could move it and everything. But nothing moved until a couple of weeks ago.
Well, for the benefit of
Yeah.
people here, can you
Could I just-
quickly go
Yeah.
through
for
this?
every, yeah, so I'll be quick. So basically, this has been being planned for 2.5 years. So in March 15th, 2021, the city issued an RFQ for a qualified architect for a conceptual design of a new community center. In that RFQ, in March of 2021, the city did list Waterman Avenue, 610 Waterman Avenue behind the senior center. That was in 2021. So then in 2022, the city held a virtual Zoom meeting. It was on Facebook Live. It was the mayor and Stark Architects. Now that we had an architect, March of 2022, the conceptual plan behind the senior center. It showed the rendering. This is the location. This is the feasibility study. This is the location. This is the types of programming we can offer. And that's behind the senior center. So then in April of 2022, after that, we now have an architect, we have a concept, we have a location. We reached out to each member of our federal delegation, and we asked them for $5 million in grant funding. We received $3 million of that. And then in August of 2022, we submitted our grant application to the state to say, hey, we have $3 million from the federal government. We have an architect. We have a plan. It's behind the senior center. And they had a special program that said, hey, this is capital funding for community centers. We said, great, that's what we're building. So in that application, it made it really easy because behind the senior center is in a low-income census tract. It's along our public transportation routes. It's in the center of the city. When we're assessing our city properties, there's only so much city property. So that's really close to our senior center and our high school and other municipal assets. So that's why that location was chosen. And then we find out we received $3.8 million in grant funding for that. So then we're up to $6.8 million. And then in February, the architect came before this council and presented that $45 million project. It showed the pool, it showed the theater, it showed that $45 million building. Then they came back before you last week with a scaled down version of that. All of this is behind the senior center. So we as a city, from the city's perspective in the planning department, we've been working 2.5 years on this. Our engineering staff, our DPW, our planning department, our finance department, all on this plan. We have, with each of these grant applications, we have letter of support from EBCAP, from our East Providence Health Equity Zone, from the East Providence Boys and Girls Club, from the East Providence.
Council saying they support this?
I was presented to the community 3 times and presented to the council
Was it
twice.
presented to the council asking if they're willing to fund above the grant money this project?
We always knew that the council obviously authorizes the funding.
Right, but did you get us our opinion of what you're trying to push with that 4 classrooms and a half court? Doesn't provide a rec center. We need a place. Go to Pierce, watch Damian Ramis running those kids. Come winter, they need a place to go. 4 classrooms and a half court isn't the answer. We're trying to convey that a rec center is what we would love to support. What you're presenting is not a rec center. The design we saw last week, there was no fitness room. You pulled out the fitness room. You know, I mean, kids are going to go hang out at a half court. I mean, if we're going to do this, let's do it right.
If I may, I wouldn't say I pulled out the fitness room. I didn't pull out the half
saying you
court.
personally.
I'm not saying us as a city. I'm saying there was no appetite to fund a $45 million building. So the architect says, okay, we're not building a $45 million building. These are the different types of programming that we can build, and these are the associated costs. It wasn't saying, hey, we're building X.
And did the city say this is what we would like out of the building?
Yeah.
And we told them we didn't want a fitness room, we didn't want a full court.
I think it
and
was
we just
scaling.
want the focus to be on classrooms.
No, the presentation was showing you the variety of different options and the costs associated with each of those options. So it's like it was picking what options. A full court costs X amount.
Yeah.
Fitness room costs another amount. Well, it wasn't-
I'm sorry.
No,
You finished first.
all right. I
we
think the
have
last part is basically just saying, so that's the whole timeline. So I don't want there to be a thing saying it just came up because this is what the city's been working on over the past 2.5 years. We have the architect, we have the construction management company. We've worked as a city to bring you $6.8 million in grant funding. I feel like we're almost at the finish line here. So that's from my perspective.
Not at that design.
So let me, hang on a sec.
I had a question.
Hang on 1 second. So if you get not a penny more from this council, you have, what, 6.8 million to work with?
6.8 million. Correct.
That is at the discretion of the administration, of the city and planning and the mayor. We wouldn't, not that we want to, we wouldn't stop that or change that. You have 6.8 million to do something. Well, with those restrictions, the health and the education.
I just have to push back against restrictions because if you think of our old rec department, I worked there for 4 years and we had classrooms. The classrooms aren't a restriction to a community center. It's just a room where you can have.
Yeah, no, we agree.
It's not.
We agree with that.
Okay. All right.
It's the lack of a fitness room, a half court. That's what we're pushing back.
So it sounds like you
We want a
more.
rec center.
Okay.
And a rec center can put, and let's be honest, the other stuff, the letter I sent the mayor, the reason I oppose this, the residents voted twice for a recreational facility. You go by Pierce, those kids, they got no place to go in the winter. So to me, that should be the main focus of this building, the recreation aspect. You talk heavily about classroom space for workforce development. We got 13 schools, 3 libraries, and the former Oldham could provide all this workforce development stuff. Location, I mean, it's the worst intersection. And health services, again, the former Oldham schools, that stuff, we have the infrastructure, but we don't take care of it. Our police stations fall into shit. We need to put money into it. The mayor vetoed putting money into it. We want to do it smart. We're on the same page. We all want a rec center to provide for the citizens of the city. What you're proposing, though, is not a rec center. And that's where we're at right now today.
Okay.
I just want to say through the chair, we appreciate, and I don't want it to seem like we're not appreciative of all the work that's gone into this through the city. I think one of the deficits that is a repeating factor is the lack of consistent communication, right? So on your timeline in February, it was presented to the council, this grandiose center. And then it didn't come back to us with an update until after a project manager was hired, which we hadn't even decided what we wanted to do for a community center. But there was funds allocated again to somebody to continue the process when we didn't even know what we were building yet. And then it came to us recently with, okay, we heard that this might not be what you want, so here's an update. That's a huge gap in time, not to be having continuing conversations about what we're looking to put into that center and what money we're looking to allocate. Would you agree with that?
And I had it on the agenda a couple times to talk about it, and it was just like, no, the mayor wants 14 million for it.
You know, in all fairness, right?
I would say
So it's not there might be talks behind the scene, but as you said, if the body that allocates the funds, it need to be involved in some of that conversation more frequently than every 6 months.
And again, my point, excuse me, Councilwoman Souza, we heard that location, but it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that we found out that the grant money was tied to that location. Like we assumed maybe we could move it to Pierce, Oldham School, or anywhere like that. It wasn't until, oh no, it's got to be there because obviously you've done the work and it could have, at that, again, going back, if we knew in February when we said $45 million, beautiful looking building that the city can't afford, and if it was tied there, it would have given you more time to go back and say, go to the feds, go to the state and say, hey, can we, as all grants can be adjusted. Now you would have had 6 months to start doing the adjustment. Now the clock is ticking, and I still think we could do it up until with the time frame. But now you have 6 less months to adjust that grant. If they will even approve it, that's what I mean.
And I just want to speak again to the reason for the location is when we're looking at grant applications. So the goal is to help the taxpayers as much as possible, right? We know there's grants out there to pay for these things. What is the most competitive ask so we can win these federal and state dollars? So that's why that Taunton Ave location, it checks every box when we're applying for these grants. So it wasn't just this unplanned event. I think we're working in the best interest of you guys as the council, understanding that we're gonna have to come to you for the full ask. So the goal is to try to ask you for as little money as possible, and we got up to 6.8 million.
And we could have had 11 million if the grant wasn't released. The bond money that the taxpayers, that the city approved twice. If the 5 million wasn't given back, we'd be at 11 million right now because that bond was still there. But when the bond was signed back or forfeited, we'd be at 11 right now. So that was poor. I would never give back a bond. So that's poor management on that part.
What the council has said on multiple occasions and what the community has also indicated is that we would like a space that incorporates all the needs from all stages of life. That does not have to be the most grandiose looking now, I don't want to say state of the art, meaning, it doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal, it doesn't have to be a Newport mansion. It has to be functional, it has to be accessible, it has to be affordable, because that's what we're gearing this for, the affordability and the usage. So just like you can build $500,000 house and you can build a house that's $250,000. That's where I'm looking at how we're going to be allocating the money and how we're going to erect these things. So when the council president says, is it possible to build this with 6.8 million? I think it's totally possible to build it with 6.8, given what we need. It's just a matter of how creative is the administration going to be with putting it out for bid for contractors where they're not saying, well, they have 6.8 million, let's max that out and maybe even ask for a little bit more versus this is what we need, show us what we need, and then we'll let you know what we have to spend on it.
Okay, thank you. Council President, is there any information that you would like for the next, that you would need to make decision?
Well, we're meeting Tuesday, is that correct, Madam Clerk? This coming Tuesday. I think a lot of that is budget finalizing, but, I don't know if that gives you enough time to, one question I have is, in general, and as specific as you could be, can any of this be amended is there time to amend any of it? And that could be, can we give options for locations? Can we say, we may want to put it at Waterman Avenue. We may want to put it at Pierce Complex. So find out if you can, how specific is the funding source on something like that. I don't know how much more we want to ask about refining. I think and I know the mayor knows, and I don't want anyone who maybe came in late, don't read anything into why the mayor isn't here. He was here earlier, we discussed the budget, and he did have a family commitment. Tonight, he's going to try to get back, similar to kinds of commitments we've all had with our families. So I had no problem with him doing that. So let's not read anything into the fact that he's not sitting here jumping up, yelling at us.
And so I want to be clear, when I say,
Back up, yeah.
hello, am I too loud? You're too loud.
Don't eat the mic, back up a little.
So when I say rec center, what I envision in my mind is a full multi-purpose court. Basketball, volleyball, foosball, whatever. A fitness room,
Full gymnasium.
strength, cardio, flexibility, and then program rooms for after-school tutoring, workforce development, and rec center programming for the community. Becky Chase used to do a great job. Arts, all that stuff. So all these things we're on board for.
Yeah.
It's the design that was presented last week. That doesn't give us a recreation facility. So if we could have a conversation with the administration on what the building should have, and I just mentioned what I'm looking for. I'm 1 of 5. Location, we're going to keep hammering back, and we do understand your position. We love you, Dominic. we just want to see if we can find a better location because overwhelmingly, people say, what are you guys nuts? You can't do a left turn signal to go there because we don't have 3 feet on the left side or something. So, and I get that, but if you're talking the other thing, it checks the boxes. The former Oldham's on a bus line. It's got all the stuff that checks the box. It may not be in that exact census tract, but we can still provide the after-school tutoring, the workforce development, the community space. We could have the local community groups in there. We could have kids in the gym in there. We're all on the same page. It's getting to the next step that we really just want to have this conversation. And let's do it right. Let's make sure this is a big investment. This is a generational thing. So I'm committed for a rec center. It's just what was presented last week. I can't get on board with. I'm sorry.
Want to add a voice from Patricia? Would you like to say something?
Sure. Thank you, Council President and members of the council. I just want to piggyback some of the information that Dominic provided. I know that the councilman has asked some questions. I don't know if the rest of the council was CC'd, and I know you have to be careful with that. That being said, there were, in addition to the timeline that Dominic provided, there were several stakeholder meetings, if you will, with members of the community, as I mentioned to the councilman, and members of the previous council as well. So there were organizations, members of the community, department heads that were all involved in that process. I just wanted to make that clear on the record. 2, just for a point of information, we do have a web page that has been dedicated to the community center. All that information is there. The RFPs are also always on our website with all the web advertisements and so on and so forth. Councilman, in reference to the conversation, to continue that conversation about what features the community would like to see in this community center, as you all are aware, part of the grant, and Dominic can speak to this as well, is the requirements include getting information and feedback from the community. So that was what we did in the form of a recent survey. We also plan to have a community meeting. It's really early. We have the survey going for 2 weeks. Just from the initial, and I can give you updates as you ask, just from the initial push that went out, and I know there was a few glitches. I take full responsibility for that. We had about 475 respondents as of this morning when I took a look. Of those 475 respondents, there were 404 that were in favor of a community center. So I think that everyone's in agreement, right? And there was about 70. But the great thing about it was it did break down with feedback. And there were 356 people who responded just to provide additional feedback separate and apart from the specific questions with all great, there were some really great ideas. And I just wanted to put it on the record that all that information will be available. We could put it in a nice little report. We started doing that, but again, it's still the first days of it. So I just wanted to, we could put that on that community.
And again, we are supportive. It's just the design we got last week.
Well, the big question, and then I'll go to Councilman Fogarty, but the big question now for me is where do we go from here? A lot of things we can bring up about the past. It isn't going to help. We can bring up some history, but the real history is the irresponsibility of the officials who, after 2 bond issues, refused to codify those bonds. Imagine the high school bond issue, which passed overwhelmingly, if the council, and I think I was probably on that council, Councilwoman Souza, imagine if we said, thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to build a high school. Or that we're not going to fix Martin and Waddington and Riverside Middle School. Imagine what would have happened. So if we want to talk history, that's the first history. We could have had a beautiful facility for $5 or $6 million back then. Okay, that's behind us. We've argued with the mayor back and forth. We've agreed with him on something. So question now is, I want to be responsible and move forward. And I think, Mr. Leonardo, I'm sure you can give the message back to the mayor, and I'm sure he'll watch this later.
Yeah.
And we'll talk with him. Anyway, I will. And what can we do to incorporate the fact that this city council and a lot of people in the community want a center, you can call it recreation or community, a city this size with the great interest we have in recreation and arts and other things, we should have had one a long time ago. The old Riverside Junior High doesn't work. So we don't own it anymore, number one. Get that out of your mind, anybody who's saying, why can't we go back there? That was a decrepit old building built in, I think, 1930. When I looked it up.
And there would still be 50 kids there playing basketball on a Friday night till 9 o'clock. It would still be packed, and that court was deplorable.
Playing basketball.
Playing basketball.
And I know I went in there and I took pictures. I couldn't find them the other day. I think it was on my old camera. The roof was falling in, it was leaking. It was not accessible to anybody who couldn't run into that building. There was steep stairways. That's out of the question. Oldham has some satellite possibilities, I think. We're talking about an incubator program. I think that's, from everything I hear, that's a great idea. There's a gymnasium there. It isn't the biggest. There are no seating. There are no bleachers. And any of us who've gone to our kids or grandkids' basketball games, CYO or rec department, no parents come in and watch and they sit. You don't just have a room and bring your own beach chairs. And so, but Oldham could possibly be part of this plan.
If we think big picture, to provide all these various services.
It won't, I don't think it would ever be the main rec center.
No,
It's at the furthest part of the city. We do want to accommodate something more centrally located, but it could possibly help.
Yeah, but I think to what a speaker said earlier, having small throughout the community
Yeah.
that can service all of the children. Not all of the children can go to Riverside. Not all of the
Right.
children can go to
Satellites.
So having little pockets throughout the city and these locations that need to be rehabbed or shown some infrastructure, might be long-term looking. You're looking big picture versus small.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I know we haven't mentioned, focusing on the bill and the usage, is what about the maintenance and continued funding for the space? Every new building, there's always a piece of that pie that doesn't get spoken to. And that, first and foremost, is one of the things that I need to know before allocating any additional funds above the 6.8 that's already allocated through federal and state funds. We need definite numbers on staffing, maintenance plans. I need something that's going
Sure.
to keep up with the property and not just set it and forget it.
That's one of the reasons why I'm, although open to it, I'm not a big proponent of a community pool. We just need to watch the news every night and see what's happening in Cranston and Providence. So they can't make them work because you could put the pool up, you could build it, but now the laws are different. It's not the 1950s when people would go into East Providence High School and have families swim. You need certified lifeguards, you need an aquatics director. These people have to be there all the time that anyone uses it. It might be doable, but as the councilwoman said, we've got to look into
I've looked
those
into North
costs.
Providence, and they have a really nice rec center. It's been a very long time. It has a pool, a community pool, and they make it work. I've looked at their budget and how they've allocated, and I'm not saying that that's what we need or we want or we're going to do, but if you have the right things in place, if you have the funds allocated, if you have an administration or a team that monitors and manages well, anything can be done. Anything can be managed for the better of the community. People aren't afraid to pay if they know that they're going to get something in return, and it's not going to be, 10 years, 20 years down the line, the money that they've invested through taxes and everything else that now they can't use it like our high school pool did. So I think continued research, I'm going to continue to do mine and look at other communities that do not have failed rec centers and that people do use them and do appreciate them and look to see if
So,
in our community.
Thank you. I have a final comment for you, Dominic, but I want to go to Councilman Fogarty first.
Yeah, my point of emphasis, thank you for your work, your team. And the proposal just doesn't fit what I was looking for either. Nor the site. I would like 2 gyms, maybe steel fab, less rock. The kids' places for morning gathering after school. We remember the rec center well. My 4 adult kids, you know, I've been there a lot. I voted for the one in 02, 04. Our kids, our community need to have the input, which they haven't had, in my opinion. These surveys aren't input. I think if you go boots on the ground, the children, the community need space where they can gather, like you said, space, 2 courts, not 1, not a half. The pool's optional. It is a cost pit. So I'm in favor of a rec center. The vision I have is 2 gyms preferably, but at least 1 big one, and rooms off of that for our youth to have those programs with seniors. I did 2 years of after-school program. I'm sure there's 100 seniors there that would go and volunteer. There's vision. We haven't been included. From me sitting here, I haven't been included in many of the plans. So I'm a no for this site, and I'm a no for that budget, but thank you for your work.
So here's your challenge, Mr. Leonardo. Obviously, not just you. We've got to hear from the mayor, the staff, and planning. You come back as soon as you can, because I know time is of the essence with funding and monies that you said by 2026. We don't have to just see work being done. We have to see kids dribbling basketballs. It has to be done. So time is definitely of the essence. You've got 6.8 million, we know. Now, if the council ties up the monies that we've tied up and might continue to do tonight, I don't see any other monies available. Director of Finance is saying there might be $20,000 or something left over. So we need to realize that. That's your homework. I remember you as a student at East Providence High School did a great job and continuing to serve this community.
Yeah.
Solicitors wonders about you, but I'm wondering about the homework. I don't think you did. Yeah, no, he was good, and so was all of his family. And I appreciate, as Councilman Fogarty said, you giving back to the community. Don't take any of this as personal. This is still one city. We're trying to work together. And
I had my neighbor come over saying, "Oh, Dominic is so amazing, so amazing." I said,
All right, guys. All right.
"It is true. Tom's here. He was telling me about you."
thank you very much. So with that, hopefully we'll move forward next week, maybe get closer and closer. Next item, please.
Mayor's message of disapproval and veto of appropriation of ARPA funds for renovation of the East Providence Police Station as passed by the City Council on September 12th, 2023, entitled An Ordinance of the Council of the City of East Providence appropriating up to $2.5 million for the renovation of the East Providence Police Station located at 750 Waterman Avenue.
So I'd like to make a motion. We accept the mayor's thing as read. And do we want to move up the vote on whether or not to override his veto at this point?
Sure, might as well do this all at once. I don't know, is there someone from administration that, we've already heard the mayor, I think he gave his objection to this before, so we've heard it. We have the letter from the mayor, and his basic premise is that they've already started work at the police department. We've got a letter, I think, that told us some of the things that have been done. There is a new roof. There are other things, but this council wants
so
move further. So do you want to read? Go ahead.
Yeah, we got architects going through, and we allocated money for the repair. And again, this police station is a pit. It's our responsibility to take care of it. It's a city-owned property. We have the responsibility. So let me read this correctly.
You want me to read the
I move that,
Council.
read what in?
item? We're on the mayor's item, so we're going to move down to the council item.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Okay, council consideration of mayor's message of disapproval and veto of appropriation of ARPA funds for renovation of the East Providence Police Station as passed by the City Council on September 12, 2023, entitled An Ordinance of the Council of the City of East Providence appropriating up to 2.5 million toward the renovation of the East Providence Police Station located at 750 Waterman Avenue. Possible vote to override, sponsored by the City Council.
Thank you. Councilman, you want to proceed?
Is saying number or title of the ordinance. Am I not seeing this on my docket?
It's chapter 905, and the title is what I read into the record. It starts in quote on your.
Oh, you're reading the mayor's thing. Okay. So,
Page 5, under quotes, an ordinance of the council of the city of East Providence is the title there.
council consideration of mayor's message of disapproval? That one?
We're on page 5. We
on
moved
page
down to
5.
the council item.
5 of the agenda.
Page 5.
So after September 12th, Councilman, there's a quotation that says an ordinance of the city, of the council of the city of East Providence. You're going to read what's in the quotation,
No, I get that, but this is telling me to read the number.
right? There's no number associated with it.
Oh, okay. 905, that's what I was needing. That's what I needed. Okay. So I move that ordinance 905,
Back up a little.
I move that ordinance 905 shall be approved notwithstanding the disapproval and veto of the mayor. Is that correct, Mike? Okay. Thank you. I just didn't see the number.
I'll second that.
So motion by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. And just under discussion, I want to add that I'll go along with you because as I've said before, I'm not going to be an obstructionist. But I do know that we've said in all of these up to
Correct.
2.5 million, so it may be less. We are awaiting an engineer and
Yeah. And I'd like to invite them.
recommendation on
Yeah.
what it needs.
Mhm.
You know, and these are independent architects and engineers. This isn't us. This isn't the mayor's office. They're going to tell us, like they do when they do any project.
And I'd like to bring them in for a
Yeah,
presentation.
no, they should come in and tell
Okay.
us what the building needs, what it will cost, and it may hopefully come in less than that, and we'll have some more money for a rec center.
Okay.
And we need it because if you look at the present budget that we're reviewing right now, there's nothing in that budget that's been presented to us under capital budget or improvements at police station. So without this, we can bring in 100 architects. Without the money, we're not going to get anywhere. So-
When we have the document, there have been a lot of things done, the police station, from a roof on, but I know there's a lot more to do.
I was raised by Marines. You don't get praised for doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilman Fogarty,
Aye.
Councilman Lawson,
Aye.
Council Vice President Rego,
Aye.
Councilwoman Sousa,
Aye.
Council President Rodrick.
Aye, passes 5-0. Next item.
So reverting back to the
Go back to
budget,
the, yes.
and then we're going to start with the City Council. Patricia?
So we're now going to finish up with our review of the budget. This first item would be City Council, which in the budget book is on page 14. So, yes, Councilman.
Let me bring you up, because I had a question. Oh, you guys can start while, I'm sorry. I'm just looking for something I had a
Okay.
question on.
I don't know if, does anyone have any comments, questions on the council part? Madam Clerk, did you want to say something?
Did you want me to run through the changes that were made this year for you?
Yeah, why don't you highlight the changes?
Okay.
We're on the
please.
clerk or the council.
So the changes that
We're on the council.
were made for
Council,
the,
I'm sorry.
we're on page 15 in
Yes.
the book. And
No, I was wondering why you're asking her. She put together our budget?
Well, she did some of the,
I was,
Okay, yeah, no, I was just confused
Technical
if we
work,
were doing a city clerk or, yeah, okay.
I was present for the changes that were made, so I was just going to outline them for
did the
you.
typing.
No, that's fine. I just,
Okay.
You know me, I just like to know what's going on.
Yes, I know you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, madam.
Tricia actually did the inputting of the budget, but the changes that were implemented were 5,000 was moved from your legal services line and moved into general office expenses. So that's why you see a bump in your general office expenses. And then on your part-time and temporary pay, the number 2,652 was added into your budget for the consideration of having an admin assistant. And I think those were the only two changes that were made.
So what's this $547 for telephone communications that we spent so far this budget year?
Hmm.
You have a cell phone?
No, I don't.
That would be a question for Patricia or Malcolm. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I would defer to the finance director.
Yeah, it says that we spent 547 on telephones communications this year.
And previously, we've spent more. Right, fiscal year 22.
Well, why are we spending anything? Who has a phone on this council?
Nobody on the council has a,
So what's that?
I'll have to get back to you. I think it just may be an allocation. It's one of two things. I know previously there used to be a stipend for the councils for phones. And so it's either that or there's an allocation from one of the phone bills. But I'll look into that and get you an answer for the next meeting.
Yeah, because there was nothing budgeted in this fiscal year for it, but yet 547 was spent.
right, so let's circle that, and when we finalize this,
So that-
Malcolm,
And what was our general office expenses of $1,000 so far this year?
The city council, there's paper products that are charged against the city council. So for instance, like the proclamations that were printed. tonight,
Proclamations,
that type
right.
of thing.
agendas.
I have a question about the stipends. What are the stipends? The last couple of years, we've had $3,000 in their actual spent, and then last year, well, year to date, there's 1,800
I'm trying to log in now.
under salary. Is that the VP, council president's additional stipend?
That under the council celebrations?
No, there's a separate line for stipends.
Right.
Celebrations has their own line too.
Yeah, I don't know of any personal stipends that were fiscal year 21, there was $3,300,
On Wi-Fi.
22, about the same.
Is this from yours? Your computer?
Yes, Councilwoman, this is the OpenGov, so I can navigate for you. He has, yes, so he looks up the account number under here, where we have the account number that line comes from, and then Malcolm is pulling that through our accounting system.
Thank you.
And so salary line, shouldn't ours come out to 18,500? We got three of us at 3,500, one at 45. When I look under 100 salaries, 17,952 is proposed. And we only budgeted for 15,300 in fiscal year 23. By ordinance, our salaries are set. So that should be a static 18,500 number.
A former council person did not take a salary.
Nate didn't.
Correct.
Okay, but what about this year?
This year, it needs.
I don't, I'm
It says 17,952.
Before the last election, when we did the budget, we addressed that at the budget that we would return it to whole, because it wasn't fair to whoever the newly elected or reappointed council that somebody, that there wouldn't be sufficient funds. But that council, the new council would then make that decision if they wanted to. So that last budget, we did return it to whole, whether it was done obviously through finances or not, but that, I know that was definitely discussed and approved by the council.
Right. I just, where'd the number 17,952 come from?
Councilman, if I may ask, where are you seeing the 17?
17.
I'm looking,
Total.
I'm in OpenGov, I'm under the city council, 100. And then city council expenses by type, it says salaries. Fiscal 24, mayor proposes $17,952.
That's
our,
total.
right. So that's our salary plus that part-time temporary pay equals.
And our salary should be 18,500.
Yeah,
So I don't know where this number 17,952 comes from.
It's an error.
It's an error.
It's an error. That's why the number's not matching up. There is an error in that.
So that's what, the third, fourth error tonight?
Just if I may, just for a point of clarification, when each department comes forward to do their budget, the department head proposes their budget. So this is the council budget. So we did sit with the council. So this is where they would make those suggestions, additions. This is your budget.
No, I get it,
Happy
but
to-
18.5 is by ordinance. That should be a static number. Did one of us say, don't put 18.5?
No.
No, those
So
numbers
Malcolm, you
are
agree
on-
with that by ordinance, that line total should say, instead of 17,952, it should say 18,5
No.
total.
How much is it? Is it 3,000 per person? What, is it 35?
35
35 times 4.
and 45 for one, for the president.
Okay, yep.
That's the 18,5.
Yeah, it's 18.5.
So under regular salaries,
18.5.
instead of 15,300, it should be 18,500.
Correct.
With all due respect, the salary items are automatically loaded into the budget. That's not something that is flexible to the department heads. I'm just point of clarification.
Well, that is true for full-time permanent, like part-time, like the council salary per person is not in there. It's just it's a one number.
So, yeah.
And I think that it just rolled forward and no one ever caught it. That it's,
So you can fix this for,
yes.
No changes were made to this number as presented, is I guess my point, when at a meeting that I was at.
That's correct, Madam Clerk. So the regular salaries line, you're correct in us explaining that when you're looking at any budget, all of the salary stuff comes from the workforce development plan, and you could actually see that these are all underlined under a normal budget, and I can show you like in the mayor's or in the law department, and that pulls from this. As you can see, none of these numbers are have any lines underneath them, meaning it's not being pulled from the workforce development plan because that's only pulled for full-time employees through the workforce development plan, in which bills that budget line. So this is an actual manual entering. So again, going back, it's probably was just an oversight on all of us not calculating that it should have been increased from what the councilman, the former councilman did not collect on it. So
That's going to affect things overall.
no, right, it's a minor, but it needs to be accurate, so. Okay, we can fix that. Other questions about the city council line items?
Can we cut the president's salary?
You can. Actually, it never came through. It had to be fixed later.
Buddy, I give you a raise.
Any charged
Yes.
interest.
The car worked out nice. All right, so let's move on.
I don't have any more questions on the council's budget.
All right,
Would you
we'll
just-
make changes for, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just let the council know those phone communication and stipend, what those expenses were allocated to
Right.
this fiscal year. That would be greatly appreciated.
Next would be on page 20 of the paper budget, the city clerk.
All right. So Jill, I'm just going to ask about, I'm going to ask everybody, the professional services, what you're anticipating needing for that.
We have an increase in our purchase professional services. We just signed a new contract with GovOS, which is offering a cloud search for our land evidence records. And so that's the reason for the increase in that line item.
Okay.
If I could just piggyback off of that, Councilman, is that going to be an increase annually for that line item?
Yes, that is a 5-year contract at that amount. So that will be a set dollar amount for the next 5 years.
And you're doubling your property line.
So under technology software, we are in the process of transitioning our probate software to IQS. That does become the property, that is a property line. It's $8,000 a year for 5 years, and then that will be done,
Okay.
paid for.
So we're investing in technology upgrades for the clerk's
Yes.
office.
Yep. Some other notes on this budget. We incorporated for, as we previously went over, processing payments for Census Gatso. So we increased our office expenses by $2,900. And we kept the education line for attendance at the municipal clerk conference next July. And there was also an increase, the mayor put an increase in the court pay. We just wanted to,
Increase in the court pay? What's the increase for? For the judges?
yeah,
And how much is the increase?
I believe it was $8,000.
A piece?
So
No,
$2,000 apiece.
2,000 each. In the process of doing this budget, the judge's pay was also moved into a line item in this budget. Is that right, Patricia? And so the numbers are a little bit hard to distinguish, but I could get the actual, maybe Malcolm could provide the numbers for you.
Malcolm could speak to this, but I believe what we did is, so the fiscal 23 budget for the court pay was $40,357,000, and the proposed is actually $44,942. So I believe it was just a $2,000 increase per judge, and it also had the court bailiff. This is where we were calculating, Madam Clerk, if you recall, we were calculating what it would cost for the court bailiff and how many sessions, and that also includes that amount as well.
So court pay pays for the judges and the sergeant at arms, or?
Malcolm can speak to that, but it looks like it comes out of that line.
This fiscal year 23, it was 40,357. Now it's an extra 4,942. And that's for pay raises for the judges?
That's an increase for the judges and as well as to cover the cost of the court bailiff for all the sessions.
And how much is the increase for the judge's salary per judge?
I'm not a numbers person, but if I were to calculate, it looks like it's roughly 2,000 per.
2,000.
$2,000 apiece, so that's 8,000.
That number isn't quite apples to apples because we were missing city sergeants for a bulk of time in 23. So if you're comparing those two budgets, they don't quite line up in terms of the raises. So you'd have to get the exact numbers from Malcolm in terms of the
How about the
increases that were
ordinance?
put in.
How about the ordinance for the, that we passed for the clerk salary?
That was passed prior to the budget being printed, but it wasn't incorporated in the budget
Wasn't?
that was presented to you. So it will.
So we'll get the right numbers.
And I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Remember, I said I was a word person and not a numbers person. So Malcolm could speak to this, but the increase is 4,900, like roughly just under 4,000. So obviously
Total
they
for
didn't,
the
they didn't
four.
total.
Yeah.
So that includes all the judges as well as the court bailiffs. So it doesn't
Bailiffs.
equal out to the 8,000 or the 2,000 per judge.
And Malcolm, on the ordinance for the clerk's salary, how did we make out with that in the budget?
I had sent that over. There was going to be some changes proposed on Tuesday's meeting. So there would be a reduction on the council's budget to offset that increase, that potential increase.
We could take it from anywhere.
That is true.
And it wasn't part of it because the position was vacant for a while and there had been somewhat of a
Well, it was a
surplus.
$20,000 increase, I think. And so there was a suggestion that it would come out of the, maybe I think it was the council's part-time pay, and then the balance was going to come out of the purchase professional services.
We, in theory, can't go in and take. We can take it from anywhere.
Correct.
We can take that. We could take it from this judge's salary. We can take it from the clerk's office and redistribute it, correct? Or we could take it from another department. We can take it from somewhere in the budget, correct?
I think so. I mean,
Yes.
yes. But yeah, but yeah, you,
You don't have to say it. I'll say it for him. The answer is
All right.
When does this happen?
when we make the final changes of adding and subtracting in the next.
Yeah, that should reflect in the
Well,
next.
it's an ordinance, so
Yeah,
it's a
well,
done deal.
Right, but it's got to
It
be
has to be
shown.
shown, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it has to be a
And
line
we-
item somewhere.
And we passed the ordinance before the budget on the 22nd of August was even published. So at that time, it should have been there. And I have an issue with it not being there. When we pass an ordinance, it should happen.
That's what I was asking for. Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
So for our final budget, finance will have all of these additions and corrections and whatever we need. That'll start Tuesday,
on Tuesday is the first
first
public hearing where
hearing.
the council will make their proposed changes, if any. And then if there are any increases, it would have to be republished again for a second hearing to be approved.
Right.
And I was able to get in the accounting system, I'll have to look into it, but the stipends are coming through ADP, so we'll have to look into payroll to see exactly what the stipends are. And the phones, there are two, AT&T Mobility and Verizon Wireless. And those are monthly charges, one $64.30, the other is $40.41. That seems to be recurring.
And whose is
And
it?
that's in the council's
That is.
budget, so that
Again,
needs to
that's-
be
all it
removed.
Tells me I'd have to go pull the bills to see if it was an allocation or a specific.
Even the prior council, we did not have phones.
None of us have a phone
I have a phone, but I pay for
from the
it.
city.
No,
Yeah,
not from the city.
No, so I remember.
It's a leftover.
initially, There was a stipend back when I was first elected that council members received that could go for any that you did, but nothing was, none of that was tied to a physical account with, it was your own personal account, and then you use a stipend to help pay for that. Nothing was ever, so I'm not sure where that money's from. Thank you for finding that out for us.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Jill, 500, training and conferences. What's that for? I mean, it's little money, but we got to let the taxpayers know what we're spending it on.
That is for training and conferences for clerks to attend various events around the state that are held.
Okay.
And for printing and advertising, we have an increase. Do you find that you're getting close to your current year's budget that would require the increase?
Yes, and that is afforded from the extra that we do for processing payments for Census Gatso.
Okay. That has to do with the ticketing cameras.
Yes.
The extra expenditure.
And how about professional development? We went from nothing to 1,500, and we spent $110 this year. again, if we had no line item for professional development, what did we spend $110 on? And why are we asking for 1,500?
Sorry, I'd close my book. I just need to reopen and find my spot.
Madam Clerk, if you'd like, I pulled it up for you.
Municipal court seminars for 1,500.
Municipal court seminars? That's for the clerk staff?
Yeah,
What kind of seminar?
for our municipal court administrator, for her to be able to attend the seminar, an annual seminar.
Where is it?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to figure out why 1,500. Is it, we have to travel her out? Is it?
I would have to get more information on that for you. I don't know.
And what was the $110 spent in fiscal year '23? What was that spent on? Because we didn't have any money allocated towards professional development last year. What was that for?
We would have to ask Malcolm for that.
Okay.
I have a question. Since we had the census company in here, have they provided us with the envelopes and the postage that he proposed that night? Have you received any of those yet?
They have lined up a mail forwarding system where we are able to bring mail over to the post office, and they will forward it without us having to incur any postage fees. So a process has started to be able to accommodate that, yes.
All right, I got no more questions.
Also, excuse me, Council President, may I ask a quick,
Please.
do you want me to go to the podium? I just,
No, you can-
just for a point of clarification, Council Vice President Rigo, I just wanted just to make sure that we're on the same page. So the day that the ordinance for the clerk increase was voted upon was the same day that we did the mayor's presentation of the budget. So everything had already been given to the council. Otherwise, we would have absolutely included it. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Great, thank you. We've had so many meetings they've run into.
Agreed,
So
agreed, understood.
Yep,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
stand corrected.
Thank you.
No problem. So we'll fix it for the final budget.
That 1,500 for the seminars, those are ongoing, right? That isn't just one seminar. There's a lot of ongoing seminars.
There are multiple seminars that we're able to attend. For instance, I mentioned the one that is the Municipal Clerks Conference in New Hampshire in July. There's the probate court judges dinner that has educational components as well. So there's a variety of opportunities throughout the year.
So, yeah, so it's not just one, there's multiple ones.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on Councilman's question, that there's more than just, it wasn't just one $1,500, there's multiples.
Okay.
All right.
I don't see a line item here where the council leadership goes to that conference in Honolulu. Oh, why? Was that an oversight? Or Malcolm, can you
They
fix
get some
that?
discount now for stays in various hotels.
Okay, well, we'll fix that for Tuesday also. Yeah. All right, so I think we're ready to, we'll make these changes for Tuesday, except for that Hawaii one. And now we've already done canvassing, so we go to the department that breaks the back of the city, the law department.
No.
Just kidding.
All right.
Mr. Solicitor, if you want to add.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I will tell you that, as you know, the law department consists of 2 full FTEs in our office, and then it's myself and Mr. Connolly. Mr. Connolly and I are not employees of the city. We are contractors with the city, so we don't participate in any of the benefits, the MERS, or anything like that. So it's just bill the city basically on a monthly basis. As you know, Dylan's office primarily does the prosecutions, does all the prosecutions for the city, and then other things as they come along. This law department since I became the solicitor, negotiates every labor contract within the city that used to be outsourced. That does not happen anymore. And we also do all the arbitrations, labor arbitrations, unless there's a conflict. So that's something that we all do in-house. The only thing that I think I changed in this budget, there used to be a line item of $15,000 that was allocated for a law clerk / intern. It's been in the budget ever since I got here, and we just had a bit difficulty finding it. We didn't find it cost effective because we're not here every day to kind of train that person to see what they go. So we poured that money back into the line item, purchase professional services. Purchase professional services is which the bills come out from Assistant Solicitor Connolly and myself, as well as other fees such as when we go to arbitration, those are arbitrator fees comes out of that. Court reporters when we need them, other type of fees associated with litigation. And then we also have, we get law books, the updates, that's the Rhode Island General Laws annual update, including the zoning handbook, and those are about, I think we budget $2,000, and that has gone significantly up over the last couple of years. But we do get hard copies of all the changes of the law, and stenographers as well. And then when we need to hire specialized counsel, like the environmental counsel that you've met a couple times for the potential purchase of land, or anything that's specialized that I cannot handle just because I don't do it, it comes out of that line item as well. So,
Mike,
Where do we, I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
Just want to ask, is it possible to, we never know if there are lawsuits and settlements and, so how does that work with the budget? If we are ordered or we come to an agreement for a legal settlement, does that money come from the general fund?
I believe it comes, we do have a small amount of money that we out budget every year for the claims that you approve on a monthly basis for claims, like, pothole claims. And there's a small amount of money. I forgot how much we budget for that, but that's not in this budget. It's another line item. To the extent that there would be a judgment against the city or a settlement, that would come out of the general fund because we do not budget a large
We don't
amount.
know. It's kind of like an unfunded mandate that the schools have. We never know if we.
Hopefully there won't be. We haven't had any large
We haven't had,
judgments.
right, we've been doing well. Questions, Councilman?
We got to get new mics. 2024, do you have any contract negotiations? Do you have anything that you know is going to be eating up some of your time?
Yes. So we're currently in the contract negotiations with the Steelworkers Union. That started last Friday.
Okay.
And I'm waiting to see, when did the tax bills go out?
June, right?
Bills go out usually the end of May, beginning of June.
For the first quarter? Or in the second quarter?
Or no.
Well,
Actually,
no.
we send the tax bills out once
Into
a
the
year.
third quarter for December.
No, for the
We're
new,
technically in
for the new bill, for the new assessment. So the other thing that I'm waiting to see is the process of when people appeal their tax bills, because we had a reevaluation year. And that always generally, there are a couple of commercial people that I know that are going through the process right now through the administrative process. But ultimately, if they don't settle or get resolution, then they file suit. And I know, and we're currently involved in litigation with PACE over an exemption that they're claiming, which the city believes they don't qualify for.
Okay.
So things like that. And as you know, we won a Supreme Court case on another matter that was pending regarding a tax appeal.
Okay. So just the steel workers, that's the only contract?
For next year, yeah,
Okay.
it'll be for November. No, their contract expires October 31st, 2023 this year.
And I believe EPP is the following year.
Next
so
year,
we
yeah,
may
next-
get into that also.
Okay.
Yeah, so there might be a
I
little.
just want to make sure we're covering because we know negotiations take time.
They take an awful lot of time. And one of the things we did do is stagger them. They used to be all up at the same time, but now we do EPP and USW separate.
And you do the contracts and Dylan the prosecutions, or see in on the contracts?
Dylan has not been involved in contract negotiations. He may, if I have a conflict, he may do a labor arbitration.
Okay.
But he does, ordinances. He was working with the council president on a bunch of ordinances. I know he's worked with all of you on other items.
So this isn't a budget per se, but if I wanted to get a resolution, is Robin okay to do it, or does it have to go through you and Dylan too?
We like to be notified.
Okay.
We ultimately check the everything resolutions. Robin has a good template that she uses.
That's what I was saying, yeah. You know,
We
okay.
review everything and goes
Right,
up.
so just keep you guys on.
Just
it
keep
for
us in
any
the loop, that's
requests.
all. That's all we ask. And you guys have done a good job of doing that, so.
And things are working well in terms of years past, there were 3 solicitors in the office, I believe a part-timer or a couple part-timers. We have 2 now. I guess it's not really a question, but we seem to be handling the work. I know that you're out flat sometimes.
They had a lot less gray hair when I started 5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Well, in fairness, you do, some things are billed out to people within your law firm or Dylan's law firm to get done.
Not much, but just some, but not a lot.
It all comes out of, so any council work, the charter commission, that's all getting billed out of these.
I believe the charter commission is getting billed out of the council, $75,000, the legal fees. There. That's getting billed out of that. That's Dylan.
And Dylan's covering those meetings?
He is.
And generally, if he does any work for the council, it's coming out of this, or it's coming out of the council.
No, if he's writing an ordinance or resolution, it usually comes out of this budget. Yeah. I think that's how it works, yeah.
So historically, we used to run with 3 solicitors.
Oh.
Are you guys handling the workload with 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Councilman Frank? Yellow Frank?
I wouldn't say you're good.
Mike gave us a compliment tonight. That's the first.
I did?
Yeah, you said we did a good job of, getting the ordinance, getting the resolutions.
You do.
I know,
I don't pull any punches, Councilman.
you might, that might cost you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Solicitor. Thank you, Council. I think that completes the bulk of the budget review, and we will make changes starting Tuesday's public hearing.
So I just want to make a comment to us that we're at the point now where we're looking to cut, reallocate, or keep as is. And I had mentioned this before. Do we have a general sense of what we want to look at? Are we looking to cut to lower the potential tax increase? Are we looking to reallocate to schools or someplace? I just want to get a general sense. So as I'm going through, obviously, if we're looking to reallocate, it's a different look than just straight up cut. So,
So I guess it's an individual question. I know I don't have any major thoughts on reallocating. We always, I guess anyone elected always wants to try to keep the same or go less. However, hearing what we've been saying as a council, like helping more with the school department, doing some other projects, I don't see us cutting a lot. There might be something. We found a couple of 5-cent things tonight, phones that aren't being used. Every penny counts. So that $100 or whatever it was, that needs to come out. I don't recall a phone since I've been on the council, so maybe that's left over from years back. I mean, those things happen. Thankfully, it wasn't a $400,000 item. So, yeah, I'm not looking at major changes. Willing to listen and see how we can accommodate the best needs.
I do know 2 things that stuck out. I'd like to allocate some capital funding to the schools. I think it's a sin if we go a full year without any maintenance in any of our school buildings.
Good. And remember, the capital stuff doesn't affect the budget line item.
Correct.
Capital project. So we can, when we get to, addressing that we could.
And I would love to minimize the $20 hike for the summer camp.
Right.
If we could find a way to do that.
Change, we could.
I mean, in this economy, this day and age, that could break a family.
You could keep status quo with that if we want to. We could eliminate it. We could add to it.
But those are the 2 things that
Sure.
I would like to.
I want to ask Malcolm, is the formula, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, for every $1 million, the budget, is that basically $1 on the tax rate?
It's about 1%.
1%. So it's something to keep in mind when we go forward. If after all the leveling is done and we're increasing the budget, we'll be able to at least calculate what that tax increase is. Obviously, if we keep it the same, it's the same. I think the tax rate going to $14 and change was pretty well received in the community. The revaluation put everything up. So yeah, now that will go up. So there's a lot of things.
And the public needs to know, we got to stop paying the bonds on the schools. So to say that there won't be a tax increase when it's been very, very vocal that you borrow over $300 million, there will be a tax increase. So we can try to minimize it as much, but it is going to happen because we had to build a new school because we didn't maintain the one we had. See the pattern here?
And just to add to that, because I hate to see that get misinterpreted, there were parts of it that were not maintained. You're right. There were some mistakes made by prior officials that didn't want that pool to operate. They got rid of a pool mechanic. And I know I was there. I saw it happen. Talked to the mechanic. We all know him. But and a lot of reasons for the new school is the new technology. You could not snake through old concrete walls. And we went from one science lab to 11. There were a lot of other reasons. It wasn't like the building was ignored. Through the years, yes, there have been some. We all know there have been some problems. Lately, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a good group of school committee, council, administrators getting things done. But that's a good point, to raise. So we need to weigh all these things when we do this final budget. You don't build 2 brand new schools without paying for them. And you get what you pay for.
And you need a maintenance plan.
Yeah, another discussion for the school department. A building that big doesn't come with a book. It's a plan. Councilman.
I have a budget question from Malcolm. In reviewing the capital budget and then reviewing all my notes through the years, through this year, I should say, not through the years, but it does feel like years, is
Wonder why? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
going through, and I match up our docket with the newspaper where the legal notices come from, the Post. I have one that I've been meaning to ask you, and I knew it was we getting into budget year, and July's meeting was crazy, and August, et cetera. But there was one that that was advertised. It was for $56,000 worth of citywide control surveillance, and I don't see that anywhere in the capital budget. First, I didn't remember us ever approving that, but that was advertised. Can you enlighten us on these $56,000 for the control surveillance?
I'm not sure where you're at. Is it currently in the budget for?
No, I'm saying where it was advertised in the newspaper.
I can't speak of the specifics, but I'll talk to you in general. So when we have, at the end of last budget year, there was a bunch of capital that was unallocated. In other words, I'm making up the numbers. Say you had $100,000 of capital and the council only approved $75,000. So we had $25,000 left over. Under a decision that we made from the law department, every time the council wants to spend money on capital funds that have not been approved as part of the budget process, we require you to advertise, I think it's a 7-day or 5-day advertisement through an ordinance to indicate that you're now going to spend a portion of that unallocated funds. And so that's why I think that's where you're looking from. So
it was 50. We never approved this 56,000.
I can't speak to that specifically, but if we advertised it, I would believe that there was an ordinance either passed or maybe it didn't pass, but there would have been an
It was
ordinance.
advertised, and we never. I'm trying to figure this out. It was advertised. It was never presented to us, and it's not in the budget. I'm just trying to ask why why it was advertised and why we never why we never approved of it.
Coming to us, is it advertised now and then?
No, June 20th.
But
Yeah.
is there a specific item? or is
Well,
it
it's the
just,
surveillance cameras.
I think what you're referring to was pulled off the docket.
I never knew it was pulled. I just saw the advertise. I match everything up. You know, as you know, I'm very anal and a pain in the rear end, but I match up everything that I see in the newspaper. I was matching up what we've done since January of all the ads, and this one is just like this. This one's out there.
Oh, that means it wasn't approved. So
It was never on our docket, but it was advertised.
It was either tabled or not put forth on the docket, but I can look into it for you.
it had to be advertised in case we were going to, but for some reason
Yeah, well-
we pulled it off. But if it wasn't advertised, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
So do we still have this surveillance equipment?
it was never purchased.
It was never.
There was no ordinance allocating that money, then nothing would have been bought from the capital funds.
Right. So this has nothing to do with the surveillance cameras that are presently in place. This isn't a contract. This is addition to what's already here.
Surveillance cameras already in place where?
All around this building.
Those have been in place for many, many.
No, I'm just saying, is that a contract or are these addition? That's what I'm trying to ask the question. Is that a contract or is that just are those permanent?
I can't answer that. The cameras that are currently in the building have been in here for a long time, so it's different.
Well, yeah, it's a couple of years.
More than that.
Yeah. I mean,
I think more than
Since
that.
the 80s, I was told.
what's that?
We've had like cameras in the building since.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah, but I'm,
Throughout the building.
Oh, throughout,
No,
okay.
not throughout the building.
though I'm talking about like the clerk's office and all these offices.
That's what,
The
couple
tax office.
last year?
cameras have been in every office for at least 6 years.
And then
But anyway, that,
just trying to figure out what we were advertising and I can't find it.
that would have been, again, I'm assuming, without looking into it more, I'm assuming that money was unallocated capital. There would have been an advertisement so to allow the council to approve the unallocated capital. Whether it was on the agenda and tabled or taken off the agenda or not put forward, I don't know. But we would never have put it on the agenda unless it was advertised. And so that's the first step. But I'll have to work with the clerk tomorrow to figure out what happened to it, if anything. But I don't believe that has anything to do with cameras within this building.
I'm just trying to ask. I'm not trying to create.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, 'cause-
I'm just telling you, that's the process that we use on unallocated capital. So if you were to, this budget's going to be approved the next couple of weeks. I forgot how much the capital budget was, but if you decide you want to hold some money back, or not approve a particular project, that becomes unallocated capital, and then we require you that when you do make the allocation, that you re-advertised or advertise for that purpose.
So was this a 5 or a 10-day ad?
I think it's a 7-day ad, believe it or not.
7 day, I mean, it's 7. So this was potentially going to come in front of us, but the administration pulled us. So that's why it never came to us.
I don't know why it was pulled. I can't speak to that. I don't know the specifics. It might have been the council decided not to. do it. I don't know.
Well, we wouldn't have pulled it.
Well, maybe the council president said we're not doing it, or maybe he got a
We could
communication.
have. I didn't, but I'm saying we could have. Any council. Is there a date on that document?
Yeah, it was in the it was supposed to be for our June 20th meeting.
This
So-
June?
Yeah, June of 2023.
23. So
Yeah.
maybe you can check further with the clerk's office and,
But you wouldn't have pulled an ordinance like
oh, she'll
that.
find out. No, I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have pulled a $56,000 ordinance.
Okay, we're gonna find out.
Oh, no, I don't want you to take the blame for it.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
I'm saying.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was what you're saying is right. That's the first step.
yeah.
Got to be advertised, and then
Yeah.
then you can do something with it. We evidently didn't. I don't know
Yeah.
why, or I don't know if they're.
Dominic and I are going one-on-one in the new
One that you
basketball
pulled it.
with you reffing.
Can you? I think that IT can add something.
No,
He's gonna ref down.
I know.
He does that to the
I
little.
think we're gonna find out shortly. In just a couple seconds. But For those watching, if you can't see, I think Director Aaron's might have somewhat of an answer. Push the button.
I believe the 56,000 is a capital request that we had for City Hall. It originally was around $90,000. And we were asking for the funding to be reallocated to the fire department, who does not have surveillance cameras on the city system. And I believe the question that came from a couple members of the council is whether we were all set with Pierce Field. And we were looking at that, and we went back to,
I know I asked something
Yes,
about
okay.
Pierce.
and that we did ask for it to, that we know that right now the fire department does not have any a good surveillance system, so we wanted to use it for them. But I checked in with the chief of police, Dan Borges, and Tony, just to double check all the locations in the city that they wanted surveillance systems. And that is in another capital request as well, from Forbes Street dumping area and all of that, where they wanted additional cameras.
So
So,
it's being readied to
yeah, and we also wanted,
morph into something else.
I think your concern was about Pierce.
I had a question
field.
about, we were getting vandalism and we had
Right.
put all that money into Pierce and so there was a question about could we add some security cameras there?
Well, we definitely could. I mean, where we have the surveillance now on the field, in the field house over the splash pad, if we wanted to expand it on the backside of the field house to that particular field, we could do that as well. But that would be, up to the team if we wanted to move on that. There's multiple needs for surveillance and access control. So the fire department was all 4 fire departments are currently shut down. And they're unable to use their key cards or anything like that. So they were kind of a critical endeavor. So
That's
continue to
separate from
support that.
cameras, the security, right? The
It's all part of the same
part of the system, okay.
Right.
Obviously, that's a priority.
I included it in my capital request for this year.
Yep.
The list of everything that we needed. And then I sought advice from those who needed it, would be the police, Dan and team. So,
Gives us a little more clarity.
yeah, so we just pulled it off the agenda until we could ascertain that information for you.
That helps me match up. Thank you.
So Kelly, that's not for this budget.
It's not gonna,
Allocate, it's monies that were not allocated in a previous capital.
Correct. I believe it was 2018, 2019 that we started allocating that funding and so,
Capital.
exactly.
things are starting to match up better for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next item,
Resolution authorizing the closing of Sabin Point Boat Ramp to reconfigure it into a kayak launch. Sponsor Council President Rodrick and Councilman Lawson.
well, I'll let Councilman Lawson talk a little more about this. I would just preface it by saying this started several months ago when Councilman Lawson and I, and listening to a lot of Riverside residents' concerns about that area, went to Sabin Point Boat Ramp area. Director Dan Borges came also. I think we requested through administration, through Napoleon, if he could come, and Dan did come. So we talked about the poor condition of the ramp, the fact that there was no parking, and all of the subsequent problems there. And we thought, I think Councilman Lawson brought up the idea about 3 minutes down the road was a better boat ramp at Haynes Park. So administration said, well, there's a way to do what we want. Let's get it in a resolution. So DPW can be authorized to do some work, but they can't do anything until we authorize this. Is that capsule?
Yeah, pretty much. And as people know, Sabin Point, 4-acre park, it's basically in a residential neighborhood. There's no parking for trailers. The boat ramp is a safety issue. It's breaking apart. So the conversation was, does it make sense to spend money on a boat ramp or maybe reconfigure into a kayak launch? So the plan right now is to configure it to a kayak launch. That will kind of block off a little bit to add more parking. Dan has a plan to do some defined parking spaces. The park is utilized, and this, I think, is just going to be an added value to add to the quality of the area.
Beautiful park, and the roads, all roads leading to it are narrow.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a place to really navigate.
People park because there is parking in the street. Some homes
Yep.
are lucky to have a driveway.
Mhm.
And so when you get cars parking on one side and sometimes both sides, trying to bring a boat trailer down there and turn around. And
Correct.
so we want to make it more amenable for kayaks, canoes, people that have little personal float devices.
And again, Haynes Park, which is still part of Riverside, has two beautiful DEM maintained boat ramps, plenty of parking for trailers. And Bold Point, which is getting some love, is also a boat ramp launch. And I would be very willing to see if we could add another one or two at Bold Point to place for people to put in there as well. But we're not taking away people's ability to put their boat in the water by doing this, because Haynes Park is 2 miles down the road.
And eventually we'll have Bold Point.
Yep.
And a couple other spots. Basically, everything that you just talked about and a couple things I mentioned are in the resolution. I won't repeat it. So we will have some other discussion if we have it. But this basically says that be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby authorizes the closing of the Sabin Point boat ramp to reconfigure it into a kayak launch for the reasons we just stated. There aren't any other comments? Is there a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this resolution to close the boat ramp at Sabin Point.
And reconfigure into a kayak launch. Motion by Councilman Lawson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I just want to be at the
Passes
kayak.
5-0.
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to be at the race between you and Rick with the
You got it,
kayak.
buddy.
That could be a fundraiser
That's it.
for the rec center.
We got the floating coolers. Yeah.
You two,
Councilwoman Souza will have the starter's pistol.
There we
She
go.
points it up.
Should be pointing it at us.
you two in the kayak.
Next item, please.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Motion
We're at
to,
adjournment.
And before we adjourn, I just want to state, I know some of us, I don't know if it's by design, I think with a couple of us, we are wearing some blue today in recognition of suicide prevention month or week. I think it's
I had no
at
idea.
least the month. Thank you, Patricia. And I know at our high school tonight, the high school volleyball game, it was considered a blue out. Their students and guests are asked not to wear their towny red, but to wear their blue in support of suicide awareness. So we're glad to join along. Motion by Councilwoman Souza to adjourn. Is there a second? Councilman Lawson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
5-0.
Ayes have it. 5-0, as Ms. Councilman Regal says, and we'll be back here Tuesday next. I'm sorry, this Monday.